Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Letting Go class with Guy Finley this morning. It's morning here in Oregon. It might be afternoon or evening from wherever you are, but we're glad you're here. My name is Leah, and I'll be the host for today's class. If you're new, our format is always the same on Sundays. Guy gives about a 1-hour talk, and then we have an opportunity for a Q&A. We take a little 5-minute break, and then we come back for a Q&A, and that's your opportunity to speak to Guy directly or ask Guy a question. So as you're listening to class this morning, if you have a question, an impression, anything you'd like to share, we all learn from each other. So your questions and comments always help the group, all of us, learn more about the truth together. So please engage at that time as well. We'll give you instructions on that when that time arrives. And if you have any tech issues or questions, you can always write those in the question area or in the GoToWebinar panel or in the chat area if you're on YouTube or Facebook. So I think that kind of gets us the outline for getting started. Guy, do you want to join me? Guy is in Southern Florida. He's in Florida. I don't know if it's Southern or not.
Everybody's here chiming in. Just go ahead, Leah, please.
We here are in Southern Oregon. There's a group of students here. There's a group of students in Florida with Guy. So we look forward to today's discussion. I'm going to go ahead and read the title. The title for today's talk: Looking at Regret and Remorse, the Crucifixion of the False Self and the Birth of Conscience, and the Three Levels of Being.
Hello, and everyone, welcome. I know the title of the talk was a tongue twister, looking at regret and remorse, the crucifixion of the false self and the birth of conscience, the three levels of being. This talk is in 3 parts, a trinity of a sort. And the purpose, as with all talks, but in this one in particular, is to disseminate new and true ideas that when they fall upon the parts of you prepared to receive them, illuminate those parts and bring them into your awareness. And in that awareness, a new kind of clarity is born, and that clarity in the end is what you have to work with to consolidate these principles, these ideas, into what will be for you in one way or another an opening, a definitive footstep, an invitation, call it what you will. But the purpose of everything that we talk about here is so that a man or a woman can wake up from this dream life that they're in and begin to understand that you're not here to dream, you're here to discover your relationship with a nature that is everlasting. So I'm breaking this talk down into 3 parts, basically. There's going to be the first part, which is looking at the difference between regret and remorse, something that virtually no one understands. Part 2 is going to be connected with an idea that to lose one's life, to find it, to sell all and follow me, certain passages in the New Testament that are obscure at best and always misinterpreted. And the last part, following this crucifixion of the false self and birth of real conscience, will be the 3 levels of being. And they're all going to add up to one another, and I'm going to do the best I can to present it all in the time allotted. But if I find myself getting caught behind, I'm not going to rush, so I might break the talk at 45 minutes or so and then have a break and come back, and instead of Q&A, finish the talk the way that I want to finish it. It's that important, and it was given to me as important, so I'm letting you know how this may go. The key lesson is almost a special writing. I'm going to go over it with you, and you can read along with me. I know in the room here you have your copy, and I hope that you can see it on the screen where you are. It reads as follows: Most of us live an accidental life where our actual condition is constantly covered up by the convenience of being able to regret whatever whatever we may look back on as the source of our pain. But let's be clear. Our list of painful regrets is not due to a cruel world, bad timing, or unfortunate events that got the better of us. No, the fault lies elsewhere, much closer to home. Not only are we blind to the legion of unconscious parts at large in the dark of us, but we are yet able to see the other half of that same truth. These parts never stop working to ensure that we never stop wrestling with the regrets that they keep resurrecting within us. And to that end, why this painful plot? The answer is that we never become conscious of the relationship between the life we regret and our identification with a lower level of consciousness that ensures its continuation. Take a nice deep breath, everybody, and let's get into this, starting with the first part, remorse versus regret, regret versus remorse. I suspect this is true. In the room, you can say yes or no. All of us have regrets. Yes or no?
Yes.
And we're not going to go through it. If we were having a live class and there was plenty of time, we'd go through it just for grins, so that we could see that most of the things that you regret, everyone else regrets. I regret what I did. I often regret sometimes what I didn't do, what I said or didn't say, relationships that were injurious. I regret a painful relationship. How about opportunities missed? How about this one, to tie it all together? We regret becoming someone we never intended to become. And we regret remaining there. Now, you can make your own list. We haven't time, but I think that covers a pretty good amount of it. And yet, assuming we all understand that, these regrets, they beg a quiet question that most of us never even think to ask ourselves. I would say, can you guess what it is? But I won't. If regret is so pervasive as impetus for self-change, isn't it? Isn't regret the impetus for self-change? Why doesn't it work? I mean, that's what you do. You're sitting at home, you regret 30 years ago, you regret what you said in a conversation 10 seconds ago. You regret being the kind of person you are because there's so much pain in it. Just go on and on and on. And all these regrets, to what end? It's like depositing your money in a bank that flows straight to some guy's account in the Bahamas, and you never get anything. Years, decades, regrets. And not just the fact for all those regrets that we remain the same character, but we continue to relive and go through the qualities and regrets over and over again. Because it's not just like I regretted that one time, is it? Or are regrets like some kind of strange dark planet orbiting what you think is this light inside of you? And that's the truth, because you see all these dark regrets as proof of your magnificence. But we're going to see this through new eyes. I'm not saying that regret doesn't have a proper place in the scheme of transcending what are unconscionable actions. You understand the word unconscionable action? And I'm not saying that we shouldn't reflect or even feel some kind of sorrow for hurting others or ourselves. But I am saying this: regret, as described, does not transform the self. And in many cases, regret actually ensures the continuation of the lower nature that condemns you and I through these regrets. I trust we're all on the same page still. And why is that true? You need to listen to this. Don't think you understand it, I beg of you. Regret, as it's commonly lived, seems to be repentance, but it is not. I'm full of regrets. I repent. I wish I wasn't. I don't know why I did. How come this is still going on? And I believe that the depth and breadth of my suffering over reliving something that I don't want to relive proves that I really don't want to relive it. Regret proves I don't want to be that person. I don't want to do those things, yes or no. But regret is nothing to do whatsoever with repentance. And ever so quickly, repentance does not mean what you have been brainwashed to believe it means. Repentance, the real meaning of it, the old word, was metanoia. And metanoia had a significant meaning. It didn't mean just that one turned around and began to look in a new direction. Please listen to this. It meant that a man or a woman not only had a beginning of a new mind, but the new mind gave them a new purpose in life. That was metanoia. That was repent. To change one purpose for another purpose, a completely different shift from what would be a worldly purpose to a spiritual direction. Because in the world, there is time and distance to be traveled. When it comes to repentance and a new purpose, there's no difference between the nature that places in you the wish to change and be new that doesn't give you that change at the same time. So there's no time involved in that. So though regret seems to be the path to transformation, clearly it's not. And if it's not the path to transformation that it promises to be, then it has to be something else that is inconceivable for a man or a woman to believe. And you know what that is? Regret is a form of deception. Not deliverance, deception. Now I'll stop here for a second, because this talk, I want you to know, I never sit down with an intention with a talk. I do sit down sometimes knowing that I'm going to give material that, if understood, will do something to the person listening to it. It's quite clear to me when it's given that way. There's no question about it. But I'm not trying to do anything to you or with you. I'm presenting what it is that I'm presented with so that you can do what you will with these ideas that are being disseminated for the sake of illumination, for the sake of clarity, and ultimately to consolidate your understanding into a singularity that allows you to begin understanding what we're looking at without having to think about it. So let's bring up the second key lesson. It brings a certain completion to the first part we're looking at. Here it is. It's impossible to regret any unwanted moment in our past, let alone repeatedly incarnate its pain, without having agreed in one way or another to revisit the same sense of self whose experience we claim to regret and yet continue to relive. It's a phenomena. I say, I wish this didn't happen. I wish I was other than I am. I'm not where it happened. I'm not in the same time. And yet here I am reliving. That's a new word. It's reliving and revisiting. Reliving everything I don't want to relive. But I'm reliving it because I don't want to relive it. Please, do you see it? So it brings us to an important revelation. Regret is almost always one part of an unconscious nature, a false sense of self condemning itself for the action it took. When we take actions that are contradictory to our own well-being or the people that we love, it's never that we took that action, but someone triggered that action in us. And then we regret what they brought up in us as the proof to us that we're not the person that's really like that, but rather, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't be exhibiting this behavior. So regret always has division in it. There's always me who wishes I weren't, who didn't do this, or who doesn't want to. And then there's always the condition that I blame for what I regret, believing if it weren't for the circumstance, I wouldn't have been so cruel, whatever that might have been. Still going? I want to be as clear as I possibly can. So something in me condemns me after I take the action that its reaction goaded me to take. So this regret is a manifestation of this divided nature. Please? That is a divided nature. It first says, go say that, go do that, go get that. Then I go say, do, or get. And it goes, are you crazy? Why would you do that? And then it'll say, I regret that. If I knew it would have been regretful, would I have done it in the first place? No, I was deceived. Deception. So it is a manifestation of division. It's important that you understand it. There's a me who looks back on what happened and says, I shouldn't have done that. Or you fill in the blanks. I could have been different. I know I could have been different. Or, and this is the big one, I'll never do that again. That's like saying, I'll never eat chocolate again. On the surface, that sounds incredibly responsible, doesn't it? I could have been different. I'll never do that again. But inwardly, something else is happening. On the surface, it sounds responsible because the self that regrets, the one who judges, quietly assumes what? I'm not really that person. Isn't that behind the regret? I'm not really that self. And that assumption is the deception. That assumption is the deception. Now listen to this. Because in that deception, in that assumption is what? You might want to write these little words down. Regret often preserves secret pride. It is painful, yes. But that pride, that pain is very pleasing in its own strange way. Because why? What is that secret pride? I'm not that person. I'm not that person. Look, I hope that you don't hurt each other. I know that you do. Here's what you're saying. There's a better version of me coming round the bend. It's soon to get here. Just trust me. And then you go, great. And then you have to say, I'm sorry again. Because that sorry belongs to a nature that regrets its action, doesn't it? But if it was really sorry, would it have to regret its action 1,000 times? Or would it actually recognize, you know what, I've done that 1,000 times. And I don't understand why I do it. So instead of believing in my regret and the promise that tomorrow I won't be that kind of person, I'm going to find out about this regret. Because I regret my life. You want to sum it all up? You can't sit and regret a relationship or a circumstance or a problem without the whole of you being involved, that entire I, that sense of self, 100% committed to that regret. Why? Because I find in that regret everything I need to do to no longer have regrets about who I am and what I've done. Still with me? So as long as this unconscious level of self, look, I have to do this. I was going to spend a whole 10 minutes going into this before I did this. I know where this talk is going to fall on you. And if you get depressed or if you get unhappy and think it's negative, you're dead in the water. This nature, this unconscious self, believes it can become better. Don't you believe that you're going to be better? Are you? Or are you more controlled? Are you more present to what you're about to punish somebody with and you squeeze that down so it doesn't come up? What we call tolerance. Tolerance isn't compassion. Regret takes actions that it regrets. But it doesn't say I'm taking an action I regret. It takes an action, then it regrets it. So the point here is what? All of us understand this, and I'm alluding to it. I know how to rearrange my life. We do it all the time. It's one of the reasons people can't sit still. Do you know why you never stop running? Because if you can be someplace other than you are, you don't have to see the evidence of all that you regret, and you can have something new regret when you get there. Because there's never happiness. There's always something wrong. Isn't finding something wrong a form of regret? Am I saying that everything's right all the time? No, I'm not. I'm simply saying that we constantly, we have this power to change ourselves. And if we change ourselves, why do I still have these regrets? So we do what? We constantly question the regretted conditions in our lives, from whence come our plans, but we never question the reality of the consciousness that creates those conditions in which we find ourselves acting out something we later regret. Everybody still tracking? But look carefully what we're doing. Regret is a kind of a myth. Why is it a myth? Because the self that revisits what it regrets, by the way, again and again, cannot change itself by revisiting its own painful memories. When you have a regret, it feels to you like this is really important. And I give my full attention to it because my full attention is on the outcome, the impetus, what the impetus promises. I'll get past this nature. But what am I actually doing when I'm looking at something and feeling a regret? What am I actually doing? I'm looking at a memory. So I'm not in real time at all. I'm in a dream. When I regret something, I am looking at the image, the experience, the memory of something I wish didn't happen that I didn't say. That's what I'm looking at. And as I'm looking at it, I'm feeling the pain of it. And listen, and the more I feel the pain of a self-induced dream, the more I want to be delivered from the dream being produced by the nature in the dream. It's a loop. It's a fruit loop. Why don't I see that I can't change myself by revisiting my memories? If you see a regret as a revisitation of a memory, what in the name of God makes me believe that I can go into a dream, into a memory, which, by the way, isn't even a pure memory. I don't know if you know this. Every memory that you have is tainted by regrets that produce the experience. So I go, how come, if you're examining this, how come I don't see this? Can you not see you've never seen this about regrets? Why don't I see it? Rhetorical. Here's why. Because regrets have lots of disguises. Here's one of the principal disguises, then I'll go through a couple. You can make your own list if you ever want to go far enough. It's not my fault. That's a disguise that regret wears. Here's another one. You know, if only he hadn't said that, I wouldn't have acted out what I now regret. That's a disguise. Regret has this disguise. How about this one? I had no choice. You don't understand. I had no choice. That's the disguise of regret. This is another. I didn't know. Now, maybe you didn't know, but tell me why you not knowing something is the source of pain in your life. You can't, because when you really don't know, you don't know. And there's no judgment in it. You see it, it's over with. And here's another, the last of the disguises for regret. Wow. Next time I'll be different. You wait. It doesn't talk to you like that, but inwardly that's going on. You wait and see. Or you might have said that to somebody. And then God help us, push comes to shove. And the same nature that's been there the whole time, unchanged, unredeemed, delivers us right back into that cycle of that dream where we believe somehow or other that regret is valuable to us realizing a different kind of life instead of seeing that regret by its very nature is deception, and that we swallow it lock, stock, and barrel. So we're almost 20 minutes in. I may have to do what I said I was going to do. But can you see so far what I'm saying? It's fairly extraordinary, isn't it? It's what's so beautiful about the truth. You're created to have a light. I've never discussed this before. I intend to in a talk. Light carries information. We know it when it comes to our television and stuff like that. You know, the light carries information, and if light can carry information here as above, so below, trust me when I tell you that the light of heaven carries information with it. And you're intended to have that light constantly not just revealing to you what's inside of you that you don't know, but giving you the understanding as you see it, so that it's not a separate thing, discovering what you didn't know and the revelation of now having knowledge about that part of yourself. It's a singularity. It is the most beautiful relationship in the world. Every other relationship on this planet is predicated on God's light coming into a human being. That marriage, which I'll get to probably in the second half of this talk. Starting to blow up a storm here in Florida. All right, everybody, we're on because we're getting ready to make a big transition. If regret is a dead end, I mean, let's just pretend for a second you can feel that deeply enough that the next time your mind starts to wander you down that road called regret, that you catch it. If regret is a dead end, then here's the big question. How do I change? With what impetus am I going to change? Because that's my impetus. I regret being born in this kind of family. I regret, when I was a boy, I was sure that I was adopted. Those parents couldn't be mine, let alone that my brothers. There's no way. I was not put here like this. Then I used to think that planet Earth is a penal colony for the criminally insane. Why am I here? I know people that still think that. They say, I don't deserve to be here. If you're here, you're supposed to be here. But you can do something while you're here that no one else can do. And then, by the way, when you really do, when you have a new purpose, like I said, is the meaning of metanoia. When you have a new purpose, you would never think about being anywhere other than where you are, ever. So, if regret isn't the impetus to change, to find God as we know it, because that's at a certain point, right? If it's not regret, what is it? What is it? Remorse. Remember I said the first part, looking at the difference between regret and remorse. So if regret is the sorrow of a self that feels bad and yet goes on to do what it regrets, that proves it's a divided nature, isn't it? If that's what a divided nature is, remorse is the collapse of that divided nature. Remorse is the collapse of your identification with a nature that constantly deceives you into believing that what you wish hadn't happened proves that you are not a part of what just took place. Because that's how we do it. I'm not a part of this problem. I'm not involved in this pain. If you weren't this way or they weren't that way, I wouldn't have the problem I do. So I believe that I'm intrinsically innocent in every moment where I have a problem. Aren't you? That's what judgment is. And judgment always leads to this idea of regret. Because now I know what the problem is. I need to fix you. I need to fix myself. And I don't fix you, and I certainly don't fix myself. So the end of that nature comes through remorse. We're going to look at this together. But first, we'll bring up the third key lesson. Please, Eric. Let me know when it's up. I'm going to have a drink of water. Read along with me. If regret is the act of a divided nature that keeps itself in place by regretting itself, then remorse is pain that nullifies that sense of self. And why is remorse so rare? And that is why remorse is so rare and why it is so holy. It is written, "Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn for the sake of righteousness." Now we have a little insight into the Beatitudes. That somehow or other, that passage, which no one understands, is alluding to this idea that there is a state of self that produces in its awakening this blessed mourning, this blessed feeling of being poor in spirit. Because what is being poor in spirit other than the gradual onset of awakening to a nature that says it regrets but doesn't change? To see that I live from a nature whose first step is to fall into that trap, and then maybe see that I can't stop it. For the longest time in your work, you are going to run right into the fact that you as you are cannot do one, almost said a word, thing to bring an end to what is constantly bringing you pain, and then promising, I regret this, I regret that, just follow me deeper into that sense of pain, and you'll be delivered from the pain that regret is causing. So here we see, God, am I powerless? My mind does what it wants to do with me. It talks, it won't shut up. It has enemies that are unrelenting in my mind. And my whole life I've spent following that chain of thoughts, then wishing that I didn't or other things were different. How many of you wish you knew? How many of you have people that you wish would regret their life? Right? Yes or no? It can't be my problem. You should regret what you are. And one day, by God, I'm going to help you regret what you are. But here we see a nature that starts to realize, you know what? Sweet God. What do I do? Who do I turn to? Where am I going to go? That's the beginning of remorse. Because that spells out in that split second that everything that has brought me to this point, which is desire, regrets over what I desired, trying to change what I desire so I don't regret the past and have a better future, and then in reinvesting myself in what regret promises me will release me from the past so full of regret. So you see that, you go, not think it, you see, who am I? What am I? And then it starts to dawn on you. It may not even be in the words that Christ used. Sell all. Sell all. What do I have to sell? What I have to sell is all that I have considered valuable. And what do I consider valuable? My justifications. What's more valuable to me than the justifications I have for what I regret? What's more valuable than the plans I have to get away from myself or get away from you? Because when I finally do, I won't have pain anymore. So what's valuable to me is what belongs to this nature that regrets. That's what's valuable to me. And most important aren't the things it regrets, but the sense of self that's derived from it. That unconscious nature that never stops vesting itself in a sense of itself, all based on wishing that it could have something other than it does, doing something other than it has to do, and certainly getting away from, if not people, the character that people bring out in you that you so regret manifesting until you drop your body. No one ever talks about how serious are the teachings of Christ. No one does. They'd rather shame you or blame you or get you into some kind of guilt so that you can do something in order to give a voice to the authority, which, by the way, what is most of the so-called religious authority if not you regretting that you can't live up to what you were told you're supposed to be? So I'm punished by the God that I say I love. But I don't think it's God punishing me. I'm being punished because I can't live up to what God has asked me to do and be. It's still regret, isn't it? And it drives this fanaticism, because if I can't actually be a different kind of human being, I'll put on the garb of some fanaticism that ensures you live up to and toe the line that you're supposed to toe. I can't. But you will, or you'll be sorry. Now, I'm going to have to lose something, it would seem. Well, I can't keep the nature, if I understand what I'm saying, and I can't keep what it thinks is valuable, because all that does is keep in place this system of values that belongs to that unconscious nature. But I want to add this. I'm not saying, please, that's why I said I want to take time. I'm not saying that, and I use the word we, that we're bad. I'm not saying that, because that you love to say that. If you're not the best person in the world, you're the worst person. Good days, I'm like, wow, world sure is lucky that I'm here. Bad days, I don't want to be here at all. Stay away from me. I don't want to talk to you. And I wouldn't be this negative if you weren't bringing it up in me. I regret this. I'm not saying that we should think of ourselves that we're bad or that we should hate ourselves, because it's already too late to stop that. We already hate ourselves. You do. You can lie till the cows come home. When you're sitting and regretting what you said and you did, are you not loathing yourself? Yes. So remorse, real remorse, begins as we see that feeling bad for what we did, regret over what happened, that regret doesn't prove I'm good. I do the bad I don't want to do, as St. Paul would say, instead of the good that I would. And then I hate myself for what I did, instead of seeing that what I did wasn't I who did it, but belonged to a nature that can't help itself, and that I always identify with and believe that my regret proves what a good person I am. Do you understand what I'm saying? Regret proves to me that I know I'm good. And it also proves that I know what good is, because what I know is good isn't just limited to me, who hates me for not being good, but it also ties me down to hating or despising or trying to change you, because you're not living up to the good that I can't live up to, and that I regret, and you apparently don't regret it the same way I do. Doesn't that irritate you when people don't regret the same things that you do? So to see all of that as true is remorse. It's whole, which means in true remorse, you might want to write this down, in true remorse, there is no me wishing I wasn't me. Why is there no me wishing I'm not me? Can anybody tell me? Because I've seen through the me that regrets me. You have to, I'm telling you what I know is true. You have to see this all the time. I wish I wasn't me. And the reason I wish I wasn't me is because I'm good. But I didn't do the good that I would. I did the me I didn't want to be. How about that for a rap? So now we have something else that we've learned. If remorse means there is, remorse begins with seeing that this wish that I wasn't me belongs to the nature of regret, which means the following. I hope you can follow me. Regret is resistance. Regret is resistance. Well, when I wish I wasn't this kind of person, am I not resisting the kind of person I just was? But I don't think to myself, I was just that person. I think you made me in that person, and therefore I resist you. I resist what you bring up in me, and that proves by and large that I'm good and you're bad. And then it's settled till the next time. Just goes on and on, doesn't it? That's the whole point. So regret is resistant. It says things should have been different. Here's another thing. It says, I want another shot. I want another shot at that. So, and why do I want another shot? How many of you want another shot in life? Yes or no? Everybody say, yeah, that's natural. I've got 7 habits of another shot. I want another shot so I can be who I believe I am. Which I always regret. This is so delightful. I hope that I'm trying to make it somewhat light enough. But here's the deal. Remorse doesn't argue. Remorse doesn't explain itself. Remorse doesn't make bargains. We're always making bargains with ourselves. That's what New Year's is. It's the day of regret, hiding itself in the day of promise. Remorse doesn't make bargains. Why? Why doesn't remorse make a bargain? Why doesn't it argue? Because with remorse you see. And what do you see? Please, here's what you see. Nice deep breath. It couldn't have been different. I couldn't have been different. I believe I can. That's what regret tells me. Regret tells me I can be different. And yet when the time comes over and over again, I'm not. So regret is a lie. It belongs to a nature that hides itself by finding something from moment to moment in which it lets you see what it needs to see to validate why you have this regret and how you won't have it the next time around. That's what it does. Now, if I actually see, which is a long ways away, I think, for most people, that it can't be different. What does that mean, that it can't be different? It means that I can't in that moment be anything other than I am. See, regret proves that I can be something other than I am in that moment. But if I can't be other than I am in that moment, and certainly you can't change it without changing this nature, they're one and the same thing, then what is it that could be different in that moment? Because now we're talking, well, if that's a fact, how do I really change? How does remorse really change a human being? Because we know what? Regret excuses that I haven't changed, yes? But why haven't I changed? Because I've yet to really see myself. Because that's what regret does. Regret's a blinder. Regret's a way in which I see what could have been or should have been instead of what actually is inside of me in that moment, producing the condition I have to regret, the consciousness I'm always excusing. You see, this old mechanical nature can't be anything other than what it is. That's what remorse is. Remorse is the discovery that within me is a nature that I had no idea was living my life. I had no idea that my thoughts were not my own thoughts. They are not. I had no idea that my reactions were not my reactions. They are not. I had no idea that the enemies that I carry around in my head and in my heart are enemies made by a nature that is a master at finding ways in which to divide itself up from the world that it's in so that it can feel that conflict and then act to save itself, and then always finding out it didn't save itself, it's suffering itself for what it has made of the world around it. Please. Now, if I see that this nature can't be other than it is, for the longest time, when you see something like that, even maybe hearing it, you might fall into a kind of despair. Seeing the truth never creates despair. And it certainly doesn't create self-hatred, because that's really at the heart of this thing. You can't serve two masters, love one, despise the other. All that business is connected to the extent of this self-love is the extent to which I make excuses and regret when it's not present in charge. And something else is doing what I know it shouldn't do, and then I can regret and hate myself for its actions. What is the clear recognition that produces remorse? The clear recognition of myself I am powerless to do and be other than these unconscious forces having their way with me. You don't know that you're hearing something that some men and women over thousands of years have asked to hear and then sometimes wish that they didn't because they don't know what to make of it. If you have the power to be other than someone who is judgmental, angry, impatient, fearful, if you have the power to do that, why isn't that power there with you in the moment when you need it? Instead of doing what it does and then regretting the action you took as proof that that power is there. That's the power over you, not the power you have. Remorse is the recognition of an entirely different level of consciousness that has to die. That's what remorse is. The recognition that who and what I am is not who and what I am, but that I have believed my entire life that that is who and what I am. I was brought up in a family, no matter what part of the world, no matter what religion, no matter what, every last human being 100% convinced that their regret for being who and what they are and what they've done proves that they are somehow different than the action they took. And what you have to see is that you can't separate the action you take from the level of being taken that action in that moment. I'm going to go ahead. I think I can get through this. So where are we? We've reached some fairly significant things, haven't we? So now we look at something that Christ said that people have always misunderstood. Couple, sell all and follow me. We talked about that a little bit. What do I have to sell? All of my excuses. All of the opinions I have of myself as someone who one day won't be this but will be that. So I have to sell my dreams of tomorrow. Everything about tomorrow I have to sell. Why? Because why do I... Have you ever asked yourself, why am I so dependent on tomorrow? If you can assume you can see that. And tomorrow not just being the so-called day after tomorrow, 10 minutes from now. Why? Because I can't bear being where I am, what I'm doing. So I have to have something that I can get to when I will get there, and then I'll be free. And then I do what I believe I have to do to be free, and then find out somehow or other that it's in conflict with something else, and that I'm in some kind of problem, and then I start regretting all the actions. I become a captive of my own wish to be free. Because my mind tells me what I have to do. So Christ said, sell all, but more importantly, and connected to the Beatitudes. Unless you despise your life, he said, you won't know the kingdom. What does that mean? Well, you and I know what it means on the surface of things. We know what it is to despise, don't we? We despise ourselves sometimes. Certainly other human beings. And this despicative, this admonition, if that's the right word from Christ, that unless you despise your life, that's not a moral command. He's not commanding anything. He's giving a spiritual instruction. What's the instruction? That to sell, what does the self keep? It keeps its images. It keeps its pride. Remember we talked about that? So that's what the self keeps. And it certainly doesn't despise its own, imagine, actually it does. It despise its own pride. No, I pride myself on my pride and everything that it props me up to escape. No, this nature that regrets, that makes it feel so special for its regrets, that's what has to be sold. That's what has to be despised, is something you don't even know lives in you yet, but from which you suffer all the time. And by the word despise doesn't mean the word that you think it means. To despise actually means to cull from, to separate oneself from. And also connected to a new purpose that doesn't belong to that nature. Where do your purposes come from? If you study it, the impetus to do what? To get past what I regret. So that my regrets and my purposes in life are intimately tied together. How does that work for you? So, I have to sell my insistence that I am other than the nature I regret. I have to sell it. I have to separate the wheat from the chaff. I have to sell this idea that there's a time that's coming that's going to be better than the one that I'm in. All of that has to go. And only then can something new descend into a person's life. Why? Because God can't enter where the self continues to protect itself. How is God going to come into a mind and a heart that's so concerned with itself, not knowing the self it's concerned with isn't you, and that everything it does to bolster itself, to produce a future in which the kingdom of heaven is there with you, every last part of it is a part of an imagination. And that's why remorse is, for all intents and purposes, the beginning of God's love. When an addict comes to the end of an addiction, isn't seeing the addiction the beginning of the end of it? Yes. Isn't it? Yes. Seeing the addiction that this consciousness has to its own unseen side and how it hides that through regrets is the beginning of the end of that nature, which is the beginning, the nullification of a self, so that something else, there's room in the inn for the Christ, for the truth to come into your life. See it with me? Still got further to go. Remorse is the end of suffering born of useless resistance. Remorse is the end of suffering born of useless resistance. What do you resist? A, I resist the things that I regret. And I suffer over my regrets. And I suffer over not changing what I regret. So built into every last part of this constant resistance to seeing that I am what I am, and that what I am, as I am, isn't going to change me. So that I begin coming to the end of things. We've talked about this in certain ways. It's finished. I have nothing to add to that. Every last teaching is connected to the discontinuation of our identification with a consciousness that we take to be our own, but that isn't. Ready for the last part? This is a big transition. We're studied the difference between regret and remorse, yes? Yes. And we've seen that this nature full of regrets is unconscionable because it continues to do what it does, believing that its regret for doing what is unconscionable actually proves it didn't mean to do that. Now the third part, the 3 levels of being. Already, listening here, you have been shown 2 distinct levels of being. A nature that can see that regret is useless, and the nature that is useless that continues to revisit regret. What I can see that I couldn't see before proves there is a light where there was darkness. That light is in the darkness doesn't comprehend it, and there it is. I can see it. It's unbelievable. That's what an addict sees. He sees that what he thought was for him was against him. Now we're talking about my nature. I think my nature is for me because it's always explaining and justifying itself and coming up with a plan. I think that's for me. Now suddenly I see that isn't for me at all. It is actually keeping me from discovering another kind of nature, which we're going to look at now, that brings an end to this endless thought process. Always sorting things out. So here we go. I trust that most of you, and if you're in another country or Christianity, in this instance, Western tradition isn't your tradition, Golgotha. Golgotha was the word Golgotha means skull. It was a place back in the days of Rome, Jerusalem, where they crucified people. It was like Death Hill, basically. And Golgotha was where they took Christ after he had been condemned to be crucified. They took him to be crucified. This is very common knowledge in Scripture. What isn't known in Scripture, and I don't know if I should say it, but I guess I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway. I don't say things to be provocative. I say things because I see them in a certain light, that as I see them in that light, I think to myself, well, why doesn't anybody else see that? Because it's so evident to me. If Christ came, if the story of Christ, it wasn't the story of Christ that came, it was Christ that came. It wasn't the story of Christ that came, it was Christ that came. The story of Christ is not Christ. And if the story of Christ isn't Christ, and there's something else, well, how come Christ had to go through that? 3 years of bloody hell. If he came to save humanity, why not just get up on the cross and die? And then my sins are resolved. I mean, that's a long way to go, isn't it, to go through all that so that I'm relieved of my sins? Why the story? One day your passion will be born out of seeing how not the world didn't deceive you. That's another excuse. That's another regret. The world's a terrible place. Yeah, it is. But that has nothing to do with what I've realized or not. So what we have here is this sort of a variance. Well, what's this story? Why is this long story told? And basically, another thing, the Gospels were written long after Christ was gone. And even that was a problem because they were trying to decide out of the apocryphals, the other disciples, which one of these guys most lines with what we can do to assure we have authority over people and make them regret for not being good Christians like we are as we take their money and their power. Like I said, I'm not sure I should say all this, but I'm saying it anyway. Why the story? Why the story? Because I have to move along. Why the story of Christ on Golgotha? Where what? He's taken up the hill and he's crucified between 2 criminals. There's a criminal on his left and a criminal on his right. And in the ancient languages, left and right had definitive meanings. I've spoken about it before. Left having to do more with the mentality. In the old days, the generals would be on the left side of the throne. The priests would be on the right side, so forth and so on. Having to do with two different levels of being. Intuition versus totality. So here is Christ being crucified. Two guys, one on his left, one on his right. And one on the left joins the crowd who's been, the story goes, mocking Christ along with the Romans. He says, if you're the Christ, save yourself and us. He doesn't mean that. He means to say, look, this guy's you're as phony as everyone else. So try to understand this. This man is on the cross about to die, and he's filled with hatred, and he's filled with all kinds of venom that proves to him that he is who he is. He's holding on to to the regret that he has in life. He's the embodiment of it. Can you see that with me? He represents the unredeemed nature. The criminal on the left, the unredeemed nature who taunts Christ. In us, there is an unredeemed nature that taunts you, that tells you, you can't, you won't, what's the point? Is there or is there not? So here's Christ, and on the left, this unredeemed nature. And even as it's judging, it's suffering. There's no repentance whatsoever. His purpose on the cross is the same it was when he was alive and stealing or murdering, whatever he was doing. Which is what? Myself. So here he is. And that nature preserves its self-love because that man is full of self-love. How do you know he's full of self-love? Because he's suffering over it by chastising Christ. Does he know he's suffering? No. Not even a clue. Can you see this with me? Now the other criminal on the right side of Christ does what? He rebukes the criminal on the left side of Christ. Why do you think I'm trying to get through to you this idea of a magnificent teaching story that nobody knows anymore is a teaching story. So he rebukes the other guy. He says, do you not fear God? Now understand, he didn't fear God before that moment. He was a criminal. he may have taken life. He says, do you not fear God? We're receiving what we deserve, but this man has done nothing wrong, he says. So he's not full of resentment, is he? What is he full of? Repentance. So on the left, the unredeemed man, and on the right, the man capable of being redeemed because he has remorse. It's a long way to go in a way to get to this part to try to help you understand that when the day comes, as it must, if you're a true aspirant, you will know remorse, but you won't know what it is. And you would know it even if I didn't tell you what it is, but somehow these teachings see that people are prepared. Why would Christ say, blessed are those that mourn? Does that sound like a blessing to you? And blessed are the poor in spirit. Hold on, I'm trying to be rich in spirit here, okay? I regret that I haven't made it so far, but one day I will. We're receiving what we deserve. This man has done nothing wrong. We receive what we deserve when we begin to see that without knowing it, we have deserted ourselves in the favor of this unredeemed consciousness that keeps telling us, here's how you become redeemed. Because that's what regret is telling you. Regret is saying, here's what you have to do to be redeemed. Please, I'm trying to show you something. And I go, yes. And you turn to the very nature that's causing the condition that you regret to take you off the cross of that pain and save you when it is the pain itself and produces itself over and over again in an unimaginable way that doesn't get better in case you haven't noticed it. So that man on the right represents what? Conscience awakened. Man on the left, unconscious, unconscionable, full of regret, resentment, self-hatred, and hatred for anything that shows it. Why would he taunt Christ? Man on the right, he's saying, you know what? And this is very curious. You know what? And he turns to Christ and he says to Christ, basically, I don't know, Lord, remember me when you come into the kingdom. Here's a man in terrible pain, being crucified, and he turns to Christ and he calls him Lord, and he says, remember me when you come into the kingdom. Now, where would that come from? The guy on the left, that consciousness? Please, these aren't people. Please, these aren't people. They're representations of levels of consciousness. That's why I gave the talk title that I did. So here's an unconscious nature that is not redeemed and cannot redeem itself, and listen, and doesn't have any interest in being redeemed. And on the right, there's someone who sees Christ. There's someone who, in the light of that nature, which is what? Christ represents the fulfillment. After redemption, a person realizes that Christ has always been inside of them. They didn't have to go looking for it, and they didn't have to regret that it wasn't there. But remorse allows the person to start realizing what the only thing that kept me from this is that I have a constant defense. I have constant accusations. I'm always bargaining. And that man on the right looks and says, will you remember me when you come into the kingdom? And then in the story, do you really think somebody was there writing this down? Christ says, today you will be with me in paradise. Why will that man be with Christ in paradise? And is it in time, or was paradise, how do I say this? Is paradise a place, or is paradise a level of consciousness? It's a level of consciousness. And if paradise is a level of consciousness, what is one of the things that signifies that level? And it's the absence of resistance. Not my will, but thy will be done. So paradise, in quotes, is the end of a conflicted, divided, regret-filled life, because it is entered upon the death of that conditioned, time-created nature. So as that nature dies, you're not going somewhere. You're realizing that it had obscured behind veils another order of your own being. That's what that Golgotha represents. 3 different levels of being: unredeemed, that which is in the process of being redeemed, and the Redeemer, or the nature that redeems those who understand the uselessness of trying to protect this self. 3 levels of being. The unrepentant, derisive, deriding nature, which is what? The self that refuses to surrender. It's the last thing that occurs to us. You set me off. When was the last time somebody set you off that you thought to yourself, whew, I really can't do anything about myself right now. I want to blame you. That gives me something to do. But I actually know I can't do anything. But I can see. And what do I see? That I can't do. And if I see that I can't do, in the midst of that is what? A great remorse, because my whole life I've prided myself on my capacity to respond in some magnificent way to keep everything in its proper place. And yet everything, what is the proper place that everything in? What I try to control, and then what I regret over having lost control. So the unrepentant nature, and then the man on the right, the repentant nature. The man that has a new purpose because he's seen something that he couldn't see until that very moment. So the light of Christ, if you want to use those words, show him he's meant to be on that cross. He deserves to be on that cross. We never think to ourselves that we deserve, here, look, I got to be very careful. When you're in pain, you never deserve it. Yes or no? But what if a man or a woman begins to understand that when you're in pain, it isn't that you deserve it, it's that you're being served a moment in which you can understand the nature that brought you to that place and not buy into the regret that promises you tomorrow you won't be there. All at once, which is what I try to do in 60 minutes. It's just about impossible. So the telling of Christ's crucifixion on Golgotha tells of a secret passage from self-preservation to seeing oneself in the light of truth, and the redemption that follows that being illuminated, which is self-abnegation. Denial. Bible's full of denial. Full of it. But it doesn't mean what people think. The denial isn't of a condition. The denial is of this consciousness that is always affirming itself through what it wants and then regretting that it didn't get what it wants. So I have to do this because someone's going to ask, well, what do I do when regret comes? That's okay. I mean, we can only ask the questions we ask. So I know that I'm going to have regrets. You going to have regrets? You want to hear something nice? One day you won't. You won't regret the way people treat you. You won't regret the way you treated people. Because if you're present enough, you see that far better than regretting what you did is realizing that you did what you did because you weren't present. Because the light was not within you, showing you what was about to act in your name. And then you realize, I must no longer act in my name. What did Christ say? Woman, why do you call me good? No one is good, he said, save the Father. Now, if Christ says that, think about yourself. So if I have regrets, what am I to do? We've pointed this out. Is reliving another regret of any value? So that here I am, and I'm beginning to see regret as a pretender to the throne. It is a familiar pain born out of a sense of self that wants to keep itself going, and now I understand this nature has to be sacrificed. But I can't sacrifice it myself. But within me is this light that recognizes that I cannot continue being who I've been. The realization that I can't be the person who justifies, explains, punishes. That realization is this great moment in which a person runs headlong into the gradual development of real remorse in their life. And as that remorse develops, your purpose changes. Because now you have a purpose-driven life. That is, your purpose is to get away from what you regret. Now you have a different purpose. To understand the nature that does what it does and then regrets its actions and then pushes it off till tomorrow. So now my purpose in the moment, listen, my purpose is now in the moment, not in tomorrow. My purpose isn't in you, it's in seeing what I need to see and understand in myself. So the next time you feel this regret, judging and rejecting yourself, even as you feel that, you have to take a different path. What's the different path? Can I change my past? Can I? No. Can I change what I did 10 seconds ago? No. And if I cannot change the self that loves to revisit this business, then what is in my power to change? My relationship to that nature. That's what's in my power. And it's only my power because the light allows me to see what I have to see. So we can, at best, elect to sacrifice this familiar sense of self. No one can teach you how to do that. The best we can do is explain why it's necessary and then encourage you as strongly as one can to realize that the pain is in regret because regret is resistance. There is peace in remorse. There is peace in remorse because remorse is surrender. And the moment that you begin to understand that, the false self, its time is up. And as its time is up, you enter into a timeless relationship with the living light that shows you it's time to let go, to sell all. Let's take a break. We'll come back and have our dialogue.
Welcome back, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started with our Q&A portion of class. For those of you that are on YouTube and Facebook, if you do want to talk to Guy directly, you can go to guyfinley.org/live and register there, sign in, and you can raise your hand in our GoToWebinar platform and speak with Guy directly, which is always a special experience. If not, you can write your questions in the chat areas of your platform. For those of you on GoToWebinar, go ahead and raise your hand and we will get to you and you can ask Guy questions directly. I just have a few quick announcements so people can sign in to GoToWebinar if they'd like to. We have this week coming up, tomorrow's Monday night, we have a study group. That's for our Wisdom School members. We get together as a group and discuss last Wednesday's classic talk. You can do that if you join our Wisdom School, which I believe you can do for as little as $6 a month, and you get a lot of access to a lot of phenomenal material behind the scenes on our website. So you can check that out. Wednesday night is the classic talk. That's at 6:00 p.m. And then next Friday is an open opportunity for all students to discuss today's talk. So we get together Friday evenings and discuss Sunday's talk. If you'd like to join us for that, that class is at 5 p.m. Pacific time. That's 8:00 Eastern time. And that's our Friday night student study group. So a lot of opportunities to continue to learn more about these truth teachings and from Guy and from the students. So I think that gets us going. One more thing. We are a nonprofit organization and these classes are free, but we do rely on donations from everyone, anything you can give to continue supporting this work. So if you can do that, we appreciate that as well. That's guyfinley.org/donations. Or if you're on YouTube, there's actually a donation button on there that you can just click and it's a couple clicks and you can donate whatever you're comfortable with. So thank you in advance for that. And thank you to all of you who do donate on a regular basis. It keeps all of this going. Okay, so Guy, you want to join me? And we have Tony's hand up. I know I have a question. There we go. Let's see. Okay, Tony, we can get started with you. Unless, Guy, do you have any further comments or you're, okay. Tony, I am unmuting you now.
Thank you. Good morning, Guy. What a phenomenal talk today. Thank you.
You're welcome, Tony.
So just keep me on track. Make sure I have it right. Basically, remorse is seeing I couldn't have been any other way. And it serves as a doorway to deeper self-reflection. Remorse is surrender. Remorse is peace. And then you talked about the levels of being from Golgotha, which is absolutely incredibly true. I love the story of Jesus for this reason. The Jesus story itself, you said, kill the story. So I like what you said there, not because we say kill the story, but meaning we really have to visit every death of what we think we know and live. And we see the levels of consciousness with the left and the right criminals, and Jesus himself, where one is unrepentant, self-preservation, always in denial about their responsibility in something. The right side being repentant, seeing their responsibility and beginning to see that thy will be done is where to go. And the middle, Jesus is thy will be done. Kill my story, thy will be done. So this is what my question is to you. You're saying what's in my power is to influence my relationship to that nature in me. This is my ability for response and my responsibility. Did I get that right? And then I have a follow-up question after you answer that one.
More or less, Tony, these are words. I always say, please don't believe what I say. Please explore for yourself. Find out whether this is true. Where everything breaks down, and though I can say it, it doesn't create the revelation. What did St. Paul said? It isn't I who lives in Christ, but Christ who lives in I.
Right.
So if it's in fact Christ who lives in I, and as Christ said, as the teachings say, irregardless of how it was written, that Christ is in the Father, we are in Christ, therefore we are in the Father, meaning that we are part of this Trinity, then the process isn't trying to reveal or change a relationship. The process is the discovery that we're already in that relationship. That when we see life as we are intended to, through the eyes of light, through the eyes of Christ, that light, that nature changes the purpose of our existence, because we don't know anything about the real purpose of our existence. So we're always imagining and creating one that we always wind up regretting, as did the prodigal son regret his choices. So it's just this beautiful reiteration of a story that is meant to be told from the inside out. That's what our work is, not to find meaning in the story outside of ourselves, but to realize that if I understand it properly, I am the story. I am the story.
Right.
Then
Yeah,
I don't.
I love that.
Yeah. Then I don't need anybody to explain it. Not that this isn't valuable. Thank God I've had men and women in my life who have shed light on the things that now I am bringing into the world. Because if it weren't for them, I wouldn't have built on understanding that led to seeing things that ultimately requires real responsibility. And then it turns out the real responsibility isn't to try to change things. It's to see that life is never trying to bring about a change in my consciousness if I participate in it.
Great. So in such participation is my second question. I don't know. I have a problem with feeling, we have a collective nature as well. We have one humanity. And I just feel that we are also responsible to our collective nature, to call it out, to call for remorse, to call for self-reflection, to call for dying of our story.
Tony.
Yeah.
Tony.
Yeah.
You don't see it yet, but you will. You're stumbling around all of these words to avoid simply saying what you want to say that would, if you were to say it, would somehow shed light on Tony that you don't want light on Tony for seeing. I'm in relationships in a world, and the world's gone to hell in a handbasket, and what am I supposed to do with the problems that I have in that world that are producing this pain in me? So I have another reason, another regret, another excuse for why I am the way I am. What if I absolutely, unequivocally, it's the first time I've ever said that the right way, unequivocally realize, let me deal with what I am being given, not with who I think is giving it to me. Let me deal with what I give, not because I want to be someone who controls what he gives, but let me see the nature that is reactive and does what it does. Let me be in that light that reveals everything passing through it. And that isn't a mental attitude. It doesn't even require people and places around you. It's all happening without you having to do anything. That's the miracle of it. We are in a field. That field is populated by manifestations of creation. Those creations and their manifestation interact with each other, not at the level of object and object, but of force and power and principle, all mingling, and each one producing a certain set of outcomes that instead of you and I sitting outside and trying to judge or control the outcome, we can participate and be a witness to the whole of that field. Then in that witnessing, we're not trying to control anything taking place in that field. We're beyond the need to control because we become a part of that life and that field and the freedom that's inherent in what created it. So we become a part of creation as we are intended to be.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best I can say it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go to Tony A now. Hi, Tony. You need to unmute yourself.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, hi, Tony.
Yes.
Oh, hi. Hi, everyone. Hi, guys. Good to see you.
No, that's not Tony.
I just wanted to say that, you know, as Tony said before me, the other Tony, the female version, She said that the talk was really, I don't even know how to say it. It was eye-opening to say the least. Now, many years ago, I heard in one of your talks you said something to the extent of, similar. We shouldn't regret something that we've, feel bad about that we did in the past or whatever, because we couldn't have done anything but what we did. So it was something like that. And I was totally confused. I walked out of that class. I remember thinking, no, well, I could have made some different decision. What do you mean I couldn't have done something different? That part of me that was listening at the time took it as, what am I, incompetent?
Tony, just let me break in for a split second. One of the characteristics of regret is, I.
Yeah, but very well stated today. I just, I was able to see exactly, and maybe for the first time, that consciousness that we live from.
I like that.
Yeah, it's all these years, and then you say something, you say in one of these talks, and you see that. Give me just a second.
Don't fight with the emotion, T.
Yeah. You see that the regrets they're a way of that consciousness binding. You're binded. It binds you to a thinking that you're doing something appropriate.
Yes.
And it's all a lie.
Yeah, it's all a lie. It's all a lie.
But I just wanted to say thank you very much for, we listen to you all the time, and we seldom appreciate it as deeply as we should.
T, what you said, it spurred a certain sensation in myself, and I will use it. I'm working on a couple books right now, and one of them features this idea of this letting go moment, this aha moment. I call it the shining moment, but I'm going to write into it what you just said in one way, because it's so true. I don't know who it was that sang it. The first time ever I saw your face, Roberta Flack. That's the spirit, that's the definition of revelation. The first time I saw your face. Because God has all of these faces and you don't see his face at all. And then one day something happens and you see God's face in the world that you're in and the people you're with, in the strangeness and the silence and the loneliness and the desperation. And that first time and you see it. And you're so grateful that you can see something you never saw before, even though it proves to you as it appears that you have been blind, but now you see. So that's good,
Indeed.
T.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You look good.
Oh,
Sorry.
wait, let's talk some more, Tone.
Okay, we have three questions now. So I'll go ahead and start with Susanna's question. I despise myself all the time. Can't stand to be in my skin. I'm nauseous to be myself. I have to sell my regrets.
Well, you can just stay nauseous. It's only partially facetious. I've said this in so many different ways, and I'll take the shortest version. We know for a fact that if we pick up something and it's hot and it hurts our hand, there's no mental action. It is a natural response to let go of what you see is hurting you. It belongs to the intelligence of the body. You get served some food at a restaurant, you smell it, you think something's off. It's a natural response not to put that in your mouth. I don't want that in my mouth. It's also a spiritually natural response when you start realizing, what am I doing holding on to this wish that I wasn't me when it hurt so much. Who's holding on to this hurt? And then instead of having a good reason or regret given to you by the consciousness responsible for that useless suffering, you see it's useless. And the action is in the seeing. This is what's so difficult for the mental mind, the nature that thinks, to understand. Everything that needs to be done is given to you in the moment of the revelation. Stay with what is revealed, not what something in you wants to conceal, and your actions will be seamless, and they'll become increasingly clear. On we go.
Okay. We have a question from, guys, just what you were just saying, because I've always questioned when it's appropriate to say I'm sorry. And you just answered that. Because in the moment, when there's proper remorse, the moment tells you if you've hurt someone, if you need to say you're sorry.
And
versus
if you say I'm sorry from remorse, it isn't you trying to repair something.
Right.
Remorse doesn't repair. It reveals what has caused the pain. And then you are feeling as deeply as you can what you wish to God you hadn't done. And that form of regret is a prelude to the final, to another order of remorse where, you know what, I watch it. If I get around this person, this happens to me. I'm going to be more vigilant, as conscious as I can. And then that isn't to produce the end of something. It's actually to augment a certain set of shocks that comes along that are required, because without shocks, there can't be remorse.
Okay, Rebecca. Hello, Guy and all. This question is about faith. I see the part of me that wants to understand how to sell all and follow me, and dying to myself, which is another part of me, knows is beyond a here are the 3 steps to sell all, et cetera, et cetera. So what feels right is, this is what faith is about. To trust the knowing of selling all will become apparent due to being in awareness of seeing and watching how this meat soup lower nature operates.
Hi, Rebecca. I'll answer in 2 ways. One, there is this kind of terrible need to tie down my understanding. And the reason there's a terrible need to tie down my understanding is because a terrible part of me wants to rely on something in the moment when I need it. Which means that I go into each moment bringing with me what I hope will save me, instead of letting the truth reveal to me that who I am doesn't need to be saved the way I fear I won't be. So on one hand, we work as you're trying to do to clarify these ideas, but on another, it's incredibly important to realize that this idea of selling all isn't something that you plan to do given a certain set of circumstances. You sell all when you understand that you have nothing of value in that moment except the delusion that of yourself you're going to save yourself. If I drop the whole idea that I'm in this moment and I must do something to control it or otherwise bring about my relationship with Christ, if I go into the moment like that, I'm dead in the water. I'll be full of regrets because I will always fall short, because the imagination can't fulfill itself. It actually creates the fear it's trying to escape. So as best you can, Rebecca, take what you heard today, and in the moment where you suddenly feel this, I just said something, how simple is this? You're going to go out to lunch. You're going to have on a conversation on the phone. You're going to send an email. Have you ever sent an email the moment you sent it, you regretted sending it? Or you regret sending something so you rewrite it 10,000 times so no one misunderstands you? Who are you protecting? So selling all takes place when you see for yourself that whatever is trying to protect you from some unwanted outcome is creating the outcome you don't want. That's when you sell all. You're done. So it's not a this, then, or that action. It's not a cause and effect. That's what I want to say. It's not cause and effect. It's a singularity. It's a single movement. The death of something isn't separate from the life of something, nor is the life of something separate from the death of something. They unfold together in a unity. We want to enter in the unity, then we're not the one trying to figure out what it means to sell. Because if I'm actually part of the whole of something, the holiness of something, it's taking care of it for me. And I see it. I'm the witness to what is holy instead of trying to do something holy. That's the best I can do.
Okay, we have Ellen here, and then if there's anyone else on your end or in the classroom here that would like to speak, here's Ellen.
While Ellen's taking her chair, let me say something to everybody. Students in the room, students over in Oregon, students everywhere around the world. You have been brainwashed. You've absolutely been brainwashed. You believe that you are meant to reach a point in your life where you don't struggle. There isn't a creature in any universe that isn't manifested and kept alive and given rebirth other than those creatures that are in a constant struggle, not to prove themselves, but to be a part of this great movement of life that gives them their life. You must struggle. But it's not struggling, oh. It's the struggle ultimately to see that striving to understand this and grinding to get it does nothing but grind you down. But on the other hand, if I'll struggle in some instances to lay down the struggle, I struggle to recognize how useless the struggle is. I've been struggling to use my mind to save myself for 1,000 years. And for 1,000 years, I'm still struggling and still regretting my inability to arrive at what I think heaven is. So the struggle then means the struggle to lay myself down, not the struggle to pick myself up. And the struggle of not doing is very different than the struggle of trying to do. Hi, Ellen. Nice and straight. Let me see you. There you go. Yeah. That's what I want to see. There you go.
So, as you know, I have struggled with regret and guilt forever. That's like
true
one
enough.
Of my
true enough.
Teachers. And this talk showed me something I never saw so clearly before, and that is the arrogance in regret.
Yeah.
It's based in this assumption of a real self.
Yes.
That had any power, that ever had any power.
Yep. Let alone a degree in psychology.
And that's what Ellen doesn't want to give up, the whole basis of this self.
Yes.
That thinks is who she is.
Yes.
And there is no individual self like that. It's just a part of a nature.
Yes.
And if that belief, that wrong belief in this self could be seen through, then there would just be the opening to a different level of consciousness.
And let's get rid of the word if and replace it with when and as, and then replace the word will be to it is done.
Yes.
To the extent that I see the truth of it, the truth sets me free. But I'm not freed from a cruel world or bitter relationships. I'm freed from a nature that believes it's a victim of those things and somehow needs controls so that it can change things. I'm relieved of my identity. That's what self-abnegation is. That's the crux of every true teaching on this planet. But we're getting there, right, El?
Yes. And boy, I really understand those words written by someone who went through this process and wrote, "Amazing grace, how great thou art,
Yep.
to save a wretch like me."
Yep.
But the wretch isn't like this little wretch that Ellen believes in, but just this lower nature.
Yeah, you know, just to wax on that for a second, amazing grace, to save a wretch like me. The word like me, made in my image. I am living out the image of this wreck. I am not the wreck. That's what I regret, is being a wreck. And then one day I see, you know what? The wreck is that something is made in this image. So instead of being made in the image of God as we are, suddenly we see that we've been made in the image of this wreck, and this wreck, this lower consciousness, is not who we are. And then I'm saved from it because I'm no longer identified with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Al.
Okay, we have a question from, let's find it, Susie. Susie says, please thank Guy for his clarity, especially the cross relationship. Tears are flowing. My question dances with the here and now participation. Is this the purpose, to be present, surrender my control or will? I think you answered most of this with the first question. My unconscious nature is still judging that I'm not doing enough, and I don't even know what enough means. Thank you again for redefining and sharing your light with us.
Yeah. So I just have to say what comes to me. The difficulty in this is that I speak to you, if you want to use these words, present to at least 3 worlds, and you're present to only one. If you have a purpose, you have a regret. But that doesn't mean that you don't have a purpose. I have a purpose, for instance, to continue developing. But when my purpose finally shows me that all these ideas about developing are actually keeping me from seeing in the moment that everything I'm needed to be a different kind of human being is given to me in the moment. It's not like I'm waiting for it, it's there. So purpose always seems to purport the idea of a distance between myself and the fulfillment of that purpose. But if it's God purpose, then there's no distance between myself and his will and the fulfillment of that as my purpose. So the clearer this becomes, the more defined your actions become, not in terms of choices, but rather relegating or giving up this idea of choice because it becomes ridiculous to you. Now, on the other hand, I have a purpose to become a better to play better golf. I do. I go out, it's my exercise. I go out and I have a purpose, and man, do I suffer for that purpose. See, is that the right kind of suffering? Not if I'm negative, it's not. If I wish I wasn't, and why is this, and I'm too old, 77, you can't swing like you used to swing, and all the stuff that comes with those kind of thoughts, that's hell. But if I see that hell, then I'm serving another purpose, aren't I? And I'll add this, regret never changed a swing. No, you can't. But when you have remorse, you realize the remorse is that you keep trying to figure out how to do what your body will do naturally, and you're in the way. That's remorse. Remorse is seeing I'm in the way. And the more you get out of the way, the better the game is, and the less bitter you are when you can't play it the way you imagine your purpose has given you. That's a hole in one. I'm done.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm done swinging.
We're just letting that land. I think that's it for today, unless there's someone else there that wants to come to the mic. We have no questions and hands are down.
No, I think it's 2:15. That's good. Do your work. Do your work. Bye.